This is Forbidden Bridge, and it's my all-time favorite game. I'm really excited to make this video today. I have the 1992 Milton Bradley edition of Forbidden Bridge here, and the 2021 Hasbro edition. So many of you might not know this, but in 1991, Hasbro purchased Milton Bradley and Parker Brothers and combined the brands in 1998 under the name Hasbro Games. So what you're gonna see is a lot of classic Milton Bradley and Parker Brother games are actually being reproduced by Hasbro. So today I wanna have a look at these games, see how 30 years has changed Forbidden Bridge, see what's gotten better, see what might have gotten worse, and let's see if it's still just as fun as I remember. So first and foremost, let's compare our covers. The box art on the 1992 edition has a very angry idol here. I love all of the detail. I love the little taglines, you know, the motorized adventure game. That's a lot of fun. Very scary there. One thing that I noticed that was kind of a quirk of the packaging is if you just turn it around, it's upside down. So it's actually designed when you're shopping for you to just flip it. One thing that I don't like is as the game's gotten older, there were no storage solutions that came with the game. It was just an empty box with all of the parts in bags or little space saver pieces of cardboard, but nothing that would hold everything in place. So one thing that I do struggle with is storage. When I put the game away in its original case, you know, I have to put the small parts in a Ziploc bag, and then I have not just the game board cardboard, but these little borders. That cardboard ends up sitting loose in the package, and because it's curved as how it fits into these plastic pieces, I don't really have a whole lot of solutions for storage. So that's always bothered me. I always felt like I was at risk of wearing out the board faster by having it loose in there, and I always try to cheat this pretty gently as it's my favorite game. Now we go on to the 2021 edition. Right out of the bat, when we talk about storage, I want to mention that I absolutely love that this is a flip top open. This is a little space saver here where all the small parts can fit around, so you can actually fit this in quite easily in the box and it's not going to rattle around. So points to Hasbro for remembering that people like to put their game back in the box when they're done playing. Might seem like something really simple, but it makes a huge difference. So there's that space saver making that groan in there. Sorry, should have taken that out. Cover art is a little bit different. I noticed that we have a bit more diversity amongst our explorers here, which that's pretty common these days when they're redesigning. And before anybody gets their feathers in a ruffle, I just want to point out the player characters have always been rainbow colored. Now, the idol does not look particularly angry by comparison to the 1992 edition. This guy looks like he wants to give you a really bad day. This guy looks like you interrupted his nap. So, I don't know. And, you know, the other thing is neither one of them look like they match the game. I want to point out, this is something that I noticed here. You look at the cover art in the original, all right? You got this angry idol. He's got these little kind of curly Q earrings. Got the eyes tilted down. When you look at the actual game, his eyes are a bit more round. He doesn't have this curly Qs, but look at this in the 2021 edition. So look at the art. You see these little curly Qs right here. He's got these. I don't know what that's called. Curly Q is probably a terrible name for it. It's probably an earring or something. But he's also got this kind of handlebar mustache. I like the mustache, the handlebar mustache. I don't know why they put it in. It's not on the cover art of either game. But again, strangely enough, you look at the cover art of the new one, the cover art for the new game more strongly resembles the maquette or the sculpt from the original game, as opposed to the original cover art more strongly resembles the sculpt for the new game. So kind of weird there, but again, you know, maybe that was the artist's intention with the new one, was take the source art from the original box and try to deliver on it, because hey, nobody likes false advertising. I also noticed that on the back of the box, if you look at the new one, they don't show like happy children playing it or anything. It's very simplistic. It shows the board, it shows what you get, which I'm cool with, because, you know, honestly, when you show little kids playing it, it kind of age locks this. And this game, you know, yes, it's made for a broad audience, but it is a lot of fun, even if you're an adult. I mean, it's simple, it's fast paced, and this catches a lot of attention being set up on your game board. So if you're looking for a pickup and to be social, set this up at the game shop. People will stop by and see what you're doing. So cover art, You know, for the most part, nice, colorful. This looks a little bit friendlier. The text has not changed. It still largely looks like an Indiana Jones ripoff. But I mean, look at the motif of the game. Clearly, you're supposed to feel like Alan Quartermain or Indiana Jones when you're playing this. Going on to the actual game boards themselves, obviously the 1992 edition is significantly larger than the 2021 edition, and this comes into play in a few things that I notice. One, the 2021 edition, lacking this plastic border around the base of the board, has to incorporate these little supports to keep the game board sturdy. The game board itself is actually relatively thin tag board, which should hold up. It kind of feels cheap. I'd like to see that improved if they're going to keep making this. I'd like to see that a little thicker. I think it would help. I do like the two-tone plastic here. I think that's really neat on these little mountains. One thing you're going to notice on the approach mountain, that's this part here, is in the 1992 edition, you have these nice spaces for the explorers to stand. When you get into the 2021 edition, they've shrunk it down so much that those spaces aren't there anymore. They don't have these nice molded squares. So instead what they do to add a little bit of sturdiness is they add these little pegs into the mold so that the little peg holes that the explorers have for traversing the bridge work on that mountain. It seems a little precarious, but it works. Functionally, it's not going to fundamentally change the game. What does fundamentally change the game is the mechanism and the idle, and that's the part that I'm most excited for. So if you ever played this back in the day, this has not changed. This mechanism is not worn out. This is exactly what it sounded like when I bought it in 1992. We're gonna put a little explorer on the bridge here. So when you roll an idle icon while you're playing the game, you have to push down the idle's head and he's gonna shake the bridge. So this is what it sounds like in the 1992 edition. That was pretty shrill, you know what I'm saying? Yeah, not great. And you notice that the shaking of the bridge, he only shakes it back and forth like 3 times, okay? So that's always how the mechanism's been. Once you have explorers on there, you saw it, knocked them over, so it does its work. But this is what I really admire about what Hasbro did with the 2021 edition, is I love this mechanism. Okay, let's listen to this. First off, listen to the sound. It's so much better. It's lower. I know it's not necessarily pleasant, but compared to the other mechanism, it doesn't sound like something's broken. It sounds like everything's moving like it should. And one other thing you'll notice is the bridge shakes quite a bit. So comparing that to the 1992, here he is much more raucous, and the mechanism runs for what feels like a little bit longer, but it doesn't shake nearly as much as the new. So point to Hasbro here. I think the 2021 edition has the nicer bridge shaking mechanism. But as we see, like, there's some differences in the sculpts, little things too. Like the bridge in the 1992 edition only has about 1 inch of slack, whereas when you look at the 2021 edition, we've got almost 2 inches of slack on the bridge. Now, that might actually have an effect on how the game plays. That might actually affect how much the bridge is shaking. So we're gonna go ahead and take it on good faith that that was necessary, but it could also be a result of shrinking the parts down. When you scale these games down, you run into little quality of life things. Like I'll use these canoes as an example. So the player character pieces and the canoes are largely unchanged. They're very similar. The old ones feel a little bit thicker. The plastic feels a little bit more sturdy, but there's also more play. When you set the explorer in the canoe, there's a little bit of play here where the explorer can be popped out. These new ones, they fit so snugly, you can pick the explorer up and he takes his canoe with him. So the tolerance is much tighter there. It doesn't quite snap in. That's not the intent on this, because the canoe is a kind of minor part of the game. But I notice subtle differences like that. Another thing is the dice. Now here's interesting. You got the dice. You've got 2 dice to play this game. You've got a numbered dice that determines how many spaces you can move. Then you get the action dice. So you have the idle, you have the jewel, and you have the explorer icon. Same thing, slightly different markings on the new ones. If you roll the idle, you have to depress the idle's head and make it do the whole If you roll a jewel, you can take the jewel out of the idol's paw if you're sitting on this space, or if you're sharing a space with another player who has a jewel, you can steal it from him. Now, the one caveat is you can't take a jewel from somebody's canoe if they've left a jewel in there, which I think is kind of strange because you can take the jewel off of the person physically, but if they leave it unattended in their canoe, you can't. Kind of strange. Now, functionally, the dice are the same, but I want to compare here. These bigger hollow dice, they have this kind of weird, cheap sound to them. You get these modern dice, and they sound like regular dice when you roll them. I like the die from the 2021 edition. So they have a nice weight. Yes, they're smaller, but they're about the size of like a traditional 6-sided die, whereas these seem comically large. So advantage, Hasbro 2021, nice die. So right now, the points as they stand here, the Hasbro edition has a box that you can put the game board away in effectively, and it has a nicer mechanism that does affect the gameplay as the bridge shakes more. So it's a quieter mechanism that's more efficient with shaking the bridge, and you have more pleasant dice. So that's where we stand with the improvements. The trade-off is we have lost some size, so it's not as attractive as this one, in my opinion, as far as when it comes to how the sculpt is. I mean, with that size change, yes, we've gained some detail. Like I think I said this earlier, I love this two-tone plastic. If I didn't, here it is. I love this two-tone plastic. I actually think the sculpt looks really nice on both of them with the two-tone plastic. I'm not super hot on the shift to gray over brown as far as the stone portions of it, but I understand that the base mountains here were largely green. This was green in the original, so I do like having some contrast. Again, those things don't really affect the gameplay too much, but are stylistic. I do like the rigidity that's added to the game board on the 1992 edition by having this border here. And I do like the darker motif. In the 1992 edition, this border is packed with little nods to there being dangerous natives in the area with little heads on spikes. We have many more poisonous snakes. We have a fire depicted on the board, giant spiders. Whereas we go to the 2021 edition, we're dealing with, just crocodiles and snakes. And the art style looks a little bit, I say how they differentiate the spaces, these little lines make the art look very copy paste, whereas this looks a little bit more like a classic movie poster, I guess, a little bit more action packed. So advantage 1992, I prefer the art style on the 1992 edition. You're not winning me over with Pierre's mustache. It's neat, it's funny, it makes me giggle, but the mustache kills me. And while we're talking style points, 1992 edition, all of the jewels are solid red. The 2021 edition, they actually have 3 colors. You can get red, you can get orange, you can get blue, and they're a lot shinier and prettier. So I did like the change in the jewels that you're stealing. These just look nicer. So advantage 2021. Also advantage 2021, though the rules have not changed, the rules have changed in that they are printed in color on a beautiful fold out. I really love this. This is great. I like the shiny glossy paper because it holds up a little bit better. The games that I have that had instruction manuals printed on shiny glossy paper, they tend to have less stains and wear on the paper. I mean, they'll get folded up, they'll get boxed corners like anything else. When you get just this untreated paper here, which there's nothing wrong. This was a great instruction manual. Very complete, very nice prints, very large text, easy to understand. For its time, wonderful. But because it's not on that sealed paper, you can see over time it started to collect grime and stains. And when you start handling it like that, it starts to feel a little gross when these things get worn. So advantage 2021 Hasbro. So overall, I think Hasbro's done a really great job bringing the experience of Forbidden Bridge forward 30 years from 1992 to 2021. I don't think any of the changes that they made fundamentally changed the gameplay. The rules are all the same. Biggest thing actually that fundamentally changes the gameplay at all is the amount of shakes that the bridge gets. I love that. I think that's great. That's exactly what the intent of the game was to be. So this actually in many ways is an improvement over the 1992, even though stylistically one could make the argument that the 1992 edition had some things going on that were a little bit better. It had the larger scale, it had the more detailed maquette, it had the little bit darker scenery on the game board. But the trade-off is the game board on the 2021 edition functions a little bit nicer, in my opinion. Without the borders, it makes it feel a little bit more accessible to the players. You're not reaching in. You can just reach across the game board very easily. So definitely worth picking up the 2021 edition if you're a fan of the original. Dare say, if you have a copy of the original, I would still go out and get a 2021 edition like I did. Because this will be the one that I'm playing with friends and company. This is kind of a collector's piece now that I can keep in good condition because, well, it's aged quite a bit. I want people to be gentle with it. So this is kind of the one that I'll roll out for game night and carry around with me because I'm not so worried about it. And if you'd like to pick yourself up a copy, I do have a link in my description. As an Amazon associate, I can get a small percentage from qualifying sales, so it helps me make awesome videos like this for you. So if you do follow my link and pick yourself up a copy from the Hasbro store, thanks a lot. I appreciate you supporting the channel. Anyway, thanks for watching. I hope you had a good time. I hope you pick yourself up a copy and have a blast playing Forbidden Bridge.